Samuel Solder very generously gave me a year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon and brings you today's video. Sheoldred versus Esika, Lathril and Braids. A bit of ramp there, some card draw, hopefully gets us into even more ramp. We will try that one. Draw into Lich's Mastery on turn 1, we just drop a land, same as our opponents. A turn 1 Dark Ritual from our opponents, so likely see, no, not Braids, it is a Thought Vessel on turn 1. And that takes them into Elvish Doomsayer. Lathril stuck on green mana, which is not where you want to be in an elf deck. Did manage to foretell a card though, so I think I would assume that that is the Tribal Reanimation card. Arcane Signet for Esika. And then going down to 5 cards in hand and Elixir of Immortality. We draw ourselves a Font of Mythos, which we could get down next turn. See what we draw into off the Night's Whisper. Okay, and see a Horn of Greed as well, so I think I discard the Horn of Greed down to hand size this turn. Braids Arisen Nightmare comes into play, so it's likely that we're going to have to discard a card to this being sacrificed this turn. The Elf ironically swinging in towards Lathril, and they do sacrifice the Elvish Doomsayer. So let's discard ourselves. Yeah, I think we're free to just get rid of a land here. I think Braids missed a land there, so 5 cards in hand, but only 3 mana available. Gilt-Leaf Palace coming into play. They revealed the Wood Elves in order to get that in on tapped and then playing the Wood Elves, so their colours are fixed here. The 5 colour play continuing to fix colours here. Prismatic Omen into play, and 3 lands in play over there. Could be holding up blue mana for a counter spell. We draw into Damnation, which is good against an elf deck. So I think to try and guarantee us drawing into lands here, we'll get down the Font of Mythos. We'll have to go for Cabal Ritual in order to do it. Always tricky when you're not getting into ramp in the early game and you have to feed your opponent's cards in order to get into the ramp yourself. Going to end up giving the Braids a missing land, I would have thought. Oh, and it's their turn 3. I thought it was their turn 3 previously, so they do make a 3rd land by turn 3. Haven't missed any land drops like I thought they might have done. A Bastion of Remembrance into play. Then Braids turning sideways towards Lathril again. Probably trying to get them to block with the Wood Elves, but they choose not to do that, so likely sacrifice Wood Elves to the Braids. Wood Elves was sacrificed there. Braids has ended up with 8 cards in hand, has an unlimited hand size thanks to the Thought Vessel, don't forget. And we see a 5 mana Black Elf here. Eye Blight colours. When it dies, create 3 Elf Warriors. And the trying to sort out mana continues. Sylvan Scrying for what I assume is a Prismatic Bridge player. Search themselves up a Reliquary Tower, which doesn't matter that it doesn't tap for colours because they have a Prismatic Omen in play, so yeah, all of their lands tap for any colours. Holding up 3 mana over there now. We draw a card into Bolas's Citadel, and I'm grateful that we have the additional card draw here because do manage to get into a land. So I don't think I'm going to rush down my commander here. We're not at threat of losing too much life. Let's just set up a little bit with Dorothy Voidwalker. Ravenous Chupacabra into play now from the Braids player, so I would think they'd go after the Dorothy Voidwalker with that. And they do point that at Dorothy Voidwalker, so not going to get any value out of that whatsoever. Apart from getting our opponent to use Ravenous Chupacabra on something that isn't Sheoldred. And then 3 damage comes in towards us from Braids. Braids choosing to sacrifice the Ravenous Chupacabra this time, so they are going to draw at least 2 cards. And the Eye Blight colours is sacrificed, so they'll mill 3 and make 3 tokens. And they have milled themselves a Null Mage Shepherd. Good to see the back of a Spring Bloom Druid and Imperious Perfect. Some good elves to get milled there, assuming that they can't just reanimate them straight away. Now the 5 colour player just scooping out of nowhere because of course. So now we see Lathril, Blade of the Elves enter play alongside the Elvish Mystic. The Elf Warrior tokens turning sideways towards Braids, who sits at 42 at the moment. I peer into the abyss. We are just constantly drawing into all of our expensive stuff, so really grateful for the additional mana. Speaking of which, it's likely that we're getting down that Gilded Lotus this turn, I think, so throw down the Bloodstained Mire. Go down to 26, turning that into a Snow Swamp, and we'll play ourselves a Gilded Lotus. And then just to save ourselves some mana later on, might as well throw down Veto at Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Dreadhorde Invasion for Braids. Following that up with a Leaden Mere, not sure if they'll be sacrificing that. Well, it's likely that they'll sacrifice Eka Wellspring. drawing a card when that comes into play. They've drawn a hell of a lot of cards without our Sheoldred in play yet. I have no doubt that Sheoldred's going to be removed as soon as it enters, and we've got 0 protection or reanimation for it yet, so just holding on as long as I can here. We are going to continue to allow Braids to draw cards. They did sacrifice the Eco Wellspring there, so ending the turn at 14. Seeing a buff on the Lathril now, it goes up to a 7/8, +1/+1 for each elf you control, and has reach. So now we see the Poison Cup, destroy a target creature. If it was foretold, scry 2. So that went on to the Braids over here. Braids being destroyed, and that means that Lathril can get straight through to either of us thanks to the Menace. Bastion of Remembrance triggering on the Braids dying. And following that up with a Well-Wisher, they are likely to gain a lot of life from that if they don't see a board wipe in the meantime. And they continued swinging at Braids, so that encourages us to leave them alone. Of course 8 damage is dealt to Braids, so they will make 8 Elf Warrior tokens, and that will buff Braids up even further. Now I have to assume that Braids is going to have spot removal for the Lathril. There's no protection over here yet, so yeah, that's a 16/7. I don't think we've taken any commander damage to it yet. No, haven't taken any commander damage to Braids, so pretty risky, but I think we'll leave this in play and not go for the board wipe yet. Okay, drawing into some draw pain in the Fate Unraveler. Another land for us. So let's go for Sheoldred finally. And then after that we'll throw down Saison, Perverter of Truth. I'm not sure we're going to make it round another turn cycle. The black player may well have a board wipe that we've just played into as well. Yeah, we'll hold back Veto in case we need to block the Menace Lathril over here. So the other mono black player has to lose a life to the Dreadhorde Invasion. The Saison, Perverter of Truth, will have them lose 2 and draw 2. And as long as Sheoldred's in play, they're going to lose a lot of life to that. 2 life per card drawn there, and they haven't even got to the draw step yet. They are in the upkeep, so if they've got some instant speed spot removal, they could use it on Sheoldred. It doesn't look like they have anything because they're going through to the draw step, so they draw to their normal draw step. And then it's 2 additional cards to the Font of Mythos as well. So they've taken a lot of damage here so far. Mana crit from Braids. Iara, first of Lochthwain. Then throwing down a Shambling Ghast. So when that dies, it can be a treasure or -1/-1 on a creature, which we are not particularly worried about. Do get drained by the Iara though. And then Braids is back into play again. So yeah, surprisingly, didn't see any removal from the black player there. We may well see Lathril swinging in towards us this turn. They sacrifice a land, surprisingly, so wanting to hold back as many blockers as possible I suppose makes total sense. We will let them draw a card because they're gonna lose life to that. So yeah, drawing 2 cards to the Braids will lose them 4 life, they go down to 18. Saison, Perverter of Truth, continuing to stay in play. It's going to draw Lathril some more cards. I'm worried about us seeing some more evasion on the Lathril, maybe trample or, I don't know, maybe flying. There are some black means of giving Lathril flying. Font of Mythos and the Sheoldred drawing more cards, losing more life. They go down to 12 and may well see us as a risk here. Mastered Mirrors is the first spell that Lathril goes for, so maybe looking to draw a card to try and get into some removal. We are going to draw a card and go down to 10 here. Luckily for the elf player, they can gain a bunch of life to the Well-Wisher, so they go from 10 up to, 25? 26 they go up to. Noteworthy that they didn't do that before swinging in with the Lathril, so maybe not confident that they're going to get through here. It'd be interesting to see who they swing in at. Okay, looking to... yeah, I don't think that's right. Looking to go in at Braids. I think Sheoldred not getting the respect she deserves there. Fine with me though. Oh, and there was a Deadly Rollick, so forcing them to use the Deadly Rollick on the Lathril, I have no doubt that that was due for the Sheoldred. But going to exile the Lathril instead, and going to untap something maybe? Maybe they have Heroic Intervention or something? Untapping the Well-Wisher and just gonna try and stay in this game for as long as they can apparently. So then once it's untapped, tapping down the Well-Wisher again. And that takes them up to 42, north of their starting life total. So making a bunch of blocks here, they're going to lose Leadenmere and the zombie token and the Shambling Ghast, which should spell the end of the the Elvish Mystic, I would think. They sacrificed a land before, so they shouldn't be desperate for the additional mana in the treasure token. Triggering the Bastion of Remembrance 3 times, they will drain us all for 3. Oh, I thought the Well-Wisher was a 1-2. Of course, so you target the Well-Wisher then. And they are getting rid of that, as opposed to the Mana Dort, which is correct. Well, I'm amazed that we are seeing all of our permanents still in play here. Going down to 7 cards in hand, they just discarded some lands there at the end of the turn. We are going to lose 2 and then draw 2, which will effectively gain us life with Sheoldred. And Crick, Son of Yawgmoth could be very useful for us this turn. Alright, looks like the elf player's got something that is... Alright, Crown of Skemfar, return it to its owner's hand. Trying to set up their Lathril again. Might be that they don't get another turn here. So an opponent loses life. Let's go after the Lathril player. I don't trust that Braids doesn't have another... They could have Snuff Out or something like that, another free spell. So I'll show my opponent that we're going after the elf player. Try and get a bunch of Veto and Sheoldred triggers on the stack. And we'll try and take the mono black player out with those. Once they're on the stack, I doubt they'll have anything that they can do about it. So draw a card to our draw step, draw to the Font of Mythos as well. We gain a bunch of life, we have our opponents lose a bunch of life to the Veto. You know how all this goes. Going to continue to point at the Lathril. Alright, so go up to 23, that is more comfortable. Hagra Mauling is going to be 4 mana in order to blow something up. Darksteel Plate could be useful to us as well. I'd really like Cabal Coffers or something. So yeah, instead of going for the crit, because I'm not sure we're going to have enough mana left over, let's just go for Peer into the Abyss and hope that we can drop Cabal Coffers. Going to point the Peer into the Abyss at myself, so I'll lose half my life and draw cards equal to half the number of cards in my library, which is currently 72. So obviously 36 cards we're going to draw. Time to see if Braids has any free removal for us. Alright, apparently not, so a bunch of Braids triggers going on the stack now. We'll start going after the mono black player with these. And the elf player deciding to scoop there. We have got the game here unless an opponent can remove a bunch of stuff from the stack here. And then the other mono black player decides to scoop as well. So yeah, I think Lathril could have given us a much more difficult time there. But yeah, had Lathril swung in towards us instead of the Braids player, then yeah, they would have made it so that we likely couldn't have won that turn. We were struggling on mana. And yeah, even after drawing into all this, we're not getting into all that much ramp. So maybe need some more ramp in the deck, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's another Sheoldred the Apocalypse win. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.